And welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3746 and today's date is October 6th, 2025, and the title of the episode is IRS now has a new position, CEO, Restructure. Our founding fathers warned us. Now, I don't know if you know this. You're not investing. You're being used. Wall Street, Washington, the Fed, they don't care about your future. They care about control. And as they push their agenda forward, they'll take everything they can from you. Your retirement, your portfolio, your freedom, all of it. The only way to protect yourself is to stop playing their rigged game and untether your wealth from the system they control before it's too late. The simplest way, move your money into a universal asset they can't print, freeze, or devalue. That asset is gold. With Noble Gold Investments, you can roll over your retirement into real physical gold and silver. Wealth that's beyond their reach and in your hands. Go to x22gold.com right now to get your free wealth protection kit. That's x22gold.com. Noble Gold, helping you break free and take back control. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, you can see that every step of the way, Trump, slowly but surely, is destroying their entire central bank system. And now he's created a new position in the IRS called the CEO. And I do believe this is for restructuring. Now, think about this for a second. When the central bank system first came into existence, they needed an enforcement agency to collect the money that was owed on the money that was loaned to we the people. Remember, the money that we're using today is not the people's money. The money that we're using today is issued from a private corporation. It's their money. And they're not just giving it to the people of this country. They're loaning it to the people of this country. And there's interest attached on that money, their money. That's why it says Federal Reserve note on top. And they need to make sure where their private money is at all times. This is why they went ahead and they implemented the IRS. It wasn't for our benefit. It was to make sure that they weren't being ripped off by you. That's what that was for. And this is why they have the ability to look at everything that you did, everything financially that you have done, they can look at because it's their currency. This is not what the founding fathers wanted. The founding fathers warned us of all of this. The founding fathers said we should never allow this to happen. This is why in the Constitution, they didn't say, hey, you know something? You know what you need? You need a private Western central bank system. No, they said the people will create their own currency. The people will coin their own money. It was done on purpose. They never wanted the government in your business, your personal financial business. They didn't want the government knowing what you were spending on, if you had to write something off, if you were purchasing something. That was your own business. And they've warned us time and time again. And now Trump and the Patriots, what are they doing? They're reversing everything the deep state, the central bankers have done. Remember, the name of the game for the deep state, the central bankers, is control. What better way to control you if they know every single thing that you do financially? You see, they don't like a system where they have no idea what you're doing. They don't like a system where it's private because the government does not need to know what we're doing with our currency. Now, if there's a criminal or something that is laundering money or doing something, yes, then you get warrants, then you investigate. But as of right now, if you're done nothing wrong, there's no reason they need to know what you've been doing, where you've been spending your money, what you've been purchasing. They have no right to know this. And I do believe in the end, all of this is going to disappear. We're going to be going back to the Constitution. And step by step, what is Trump doing? He's building that new system. You see, the system that he's building, the tariff system, the gold card system, the energy system, the technology system, it's all being done via external revenue, not taking the revenue from the hardworking Americans. That is the difference. And this is what the founders wanted from the very beginning. The founders warned us about banking. The founders warned us about loaning money. They warned us about all of this. And once again, here we are fighting the same exact people to take back control of our country, to take back control of the creation of currency, to take back control of pretty much everything. And as we move forward, you're going to see the central bank system, it's going to start to completely and utterly fall apart. And this is what we see happening out in Europe. You're seeing it in France, you're seeing it in Germany, you're seeing it out in the UK. The Eurozone construction, it keeps shrinking. You could see there's a lot of layoffs that are now on the horizon. You can see inflation now is picking up. And basically what is happening right now is the Eurozone, they are in trouble. And I do believe as we move forward down this path, it's going to get worse and worse for them. Actually, you have to remember, Germany is the country that pretty much props everything up. And they use Germany as the template for the Green New Scam. And this is why Germany is having such a major problem. This is what was happening here in the United States until Trump came in and started to cancel everything that they were doing. And like I said before, we are going to find out that he pulled us out of the Biden recession. That is what we're going to find out in the end. And every step of the way, what is Trump doing? Little by little, he's adding more and more tariffs. You see, as the tariffs normalize, as people see no inflation whatsoever, and you don't have to worry about that, and it's forcing manufacturers back to this country, he does a little bit more with tariffs, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And before you know it, we're going to be bringing in trillions and trillions of dollars via tariffs. This is what Trump put out on Truth. He said the following: beginning November 1st, 2025, all medium and heavy-duty trucks coming into the United States from other countries will be tariffed at the rate of 25%. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And what do you think this is going to do? This is going to push the automobile manufacturers, those manufacturers that are making trucks, into the United States. So basically, they're going to be coming from Mexico. They're going to be coming from Canada. And yes, you're going to see a lot of European countries who are making lightweight or medium weight and heavy duty trucks. They're also going to be shifting production here to the United States. And what is Trump doing to bring all of these manufacturers back here? He's reducing the energy costs. He's going to be removing a lot of regulations. He's going to be removing a lot of the taxes that we see today. And that's exactly what is happening. Remember, OPEC, they are now ramping up production. You know what that's going to do? That's going to lower the oil prices here in this country. And they're going to get lower and lower and lower, because I do believe what Trump is doing right now, he's setting it all up, and he needs OPEC right now to be the driving factor, because, again, it takes time for the oil companies in this country to actually get the permits and actually begin operation of drilling for oil. It doesn't happen overnight. But I do believe what's going to happen as we get through the first part of 2026, I do believe probably around the spring, we're going to start to see production really ramp up, and we're going to see drilling all over the place. And then you're going to start to see oil really start to come down. But before that happens, Trump needs OPEC to produce a lot of oil to bring the prices down. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: before I became president, OPEC kept oil prices high. It wasn't right for them to do that. In a different form is being done again, this time by the big home builders of our nation. They're my friends, and they're very important to the success of our country. But now they can get financing, and they have to start building homes. They're sitting on 2 million empty lots, a record. I'm asking Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to get big home builders going, and by so doing, help restore the American dream. Absolutely. And this is why Trump wanted the rates to come down. This is why he's been pressuring the Federal Reserve. And this is why the Federal Reserve has been pushing back, because they know if they lower the rates, they're screwed. Their entire central bank deep state operation is screwed big time, because everyone will be looking at the economy. Everyone will be saying, holy crap, look at the economy. It is now flying like we've never seen before. And it's getting better and better. See, Trump, all he had to do was make sure we didn't see inflation like Biden and hold inflation steady. Now, remember, inflation doesn't go away, but if you're holding inflation steady and you're lowering energy prices and wages are going up, and there are more and more jobs with higher wages, that makes people feel good. And if you get a job, or if you get a raise in your job, and you're making more money than the rate of inflation, you feel pretty darn good. Now, add on top of that, you go to the pump, and you say, holy crap, gas is at $2.79, gas is at $2.59, gas is at $2.39. That puts a lot more money in your pocket. And also that flows into electricity costs, home heating. Now, I don't know if you know this. You're not investing. you're being used. Wall Street, Washington, the Fed, they don't care about your future. They care about control. And as they push their agenda forward, they'll take everything they can from you. Your retirement, your portfolio, your freedom, all of it. The only way to protect yourself is to stop playing their rigged game and untether your wealth from the system they control before it's too late. The simplest way, move your money into a universal asset they can't print, freeze, or devalue. That asset is gold. With Noble Gold Investments, you can roll over your retirement into real physical gold and silver. Wealth that's beyond their reach and in your hands. Go to x22gold.com right now to get your free wealth protection kit. That's x22gold.com. Noble Gold, helping you break free and take back control. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. And the products that you're buying on the shelves. So that means you have a lot more buying power. And I do believe, to add on top of all of this, I do believe what's next after that is basically removing the income tax from the people of this country. Because if we're going to move to external revenue, there's no reason for internal revenue. And I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they're setting this all up with the IRS right now, which we'll be talking about in just a sec. But since we've been talking about inflation and as we approach the holiday season, Trump just has a nice little message for us about the holiday and inflation. He put this out on Truth. He said the following: just out. Good news for the holiday season. Early prices are down, while tariffs are making our country an economic power again. Also, virtually no inflation as stock markets continually hit record highs. The best of all worlds for the U.S. Absolutely. And it looks pretty darn good right now. And like we said before, the IRS, that is the thugs, the enforcers of the Federal Reserve System. And this is why it was created, because they had to keep track of their private money. Because you have to remember, this is their private currency that they are loaning you, and you have interest attached on this, and they want to make sure that you're paying your fair share every single year. And this is why they created the IRS. See, our founding fathers never wanted this. They never wanted a private corporation loaning us their private currency they just create out of thin air. And they didn't want anyone checking on we the people. We wanted to be independent from government, from any private corporation. And I do believe that's where all this is headed. And I think this is why Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent decided to create a new position in the IRS. And this is what he put out. As acting commissioner of IRS News, I am pleased to announce the appointment of Frank Bisignano as CEO of the IRS, a newly created position he will take on in addition to his current role as Social Security Commissioner. Frank is a businessman with an exceptional track record of driving growth and efficiency in the private and now public sector. Under his leadership at SSA, delivering on President Trump's agenda, he has already made important and substantial progress. We are pleased that he will bring the expertise to the IRS as we sharpen our focus on collections, privacy, and customer service in order to deliver better outcomes for hardworking Americans. And remember, the IRS was created in 1913 to go right along with the creation of the Federal Reserve. We are borrowing a private corporation currency. Since we are borrowing this currency, there's interest attached to it. And how do you collect the interest on the money? How do you make sure nobody's ripping off the private corporation? You need an enforcer, and that is called the IRS. So basically, that is the Internal Revenue Service, and Trump is now creating the External Revenue Service. And the newly created position of Chief Executive Officer of the Internal Revenue Service for Frank involves the following key duties and responsibility: reporting directly to Acting IRS Commissioner Scott Bessent, managing the overall IRS organization, overseeing all day-to-day IRS operations. The newly created CEO position for Frank appears designed to facilitate restructuring and modernization efforts at the IRS, drawing on his extensive background in corporation transformations, mergers, efficiency drives. The role explicitly involves managing the organization and overseeing all day-to-day IRS operations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent highlighted Frank's exceptional track record of driving growth and efficiency in the private sector, which will then use in the IRS. This expertise is intended to address shared technological and customer service goals between the IRS and Social Security Administration, suggesting cross-agency synergies that could involve reorganizing workflows, technology upgrades, and resource allocation. The appointment is framed as part of a broader Treasury effort to modernize the IRS, including upgrading technology and enabling electronic tax filing, sharpening enforcement on collections. While the announcement does not detail specific restructuring plans, example layoffs or department mergers, Frank's history at firms like Fiserv and JP Morgan, where he oversaw large-scale operation shifts, indicate the role could lead to similar changes at the IRS to achieve the stated goals of efficiency and better outcomes for taxpayers. Now, in the very beginning, they're going to be going through the IRS, and I do believe they're going to do what they do with every other agency. They're going to look through it and go, holy crap, we don't need that. We don't need this. You don't need to be here. We have too many people employed. And let's see how the process works. And I think they're going to find out that the process does not work that well. And I just want to go back a little bit in time, back to February of 2025. Remember when Dan Scavino put out time to abolish the IRS? I do believe Trump and team, they're placing this person there to look into the agency, just like USAID, the Department of Education, and the rest. And eventually what's going to happen is when we move out of the Federal Reserve System, the IRS is going to be structured into a different system where I do believe they will still collect taxes, but not income taxes on the everyday person. They might be collecting income taxes on corporations. So I do believe that this is going to change dramatically, and we're going to see something very, very different. Now, what's very interesting is I do believe we need to go back a little bit in time, because remember, the deep state players, they've been tricking us for a very long time. They tell us one thing and they actually do another. And everything that they have done, where they said they're going to get rid of poverty, they're going to make the country great, it was never, ever done. And all they did was spend and spend and spend. Defender of the Republic put this out on X and says, the Democrat deception. In 1964, LBJ and Democrats sold America a lie with the war on poverty. Promising to uplift the poor with Medicaid and welfare, LBJ's heartfelt cry, give people a chance, hid the truth. A 10% tax surcharge slammed everyone, even families earning just $1,000. Every Democrat backed this, burdening the working class to fund a $17 billion great society. The result, $22 trillion spent, poverty frozen at 14%, single-parent families up 4 times, and a $35 trillion debt strangling us. Democrats' compassion is a scam. Decades of taxing workers dry while preaching salvation. And they had a tax because they were borrowing more and more and more. And where do you think the money comes from to pay for all of this? And as you add to the debt, what happens? Well, there's higher interest payments. Where do you think you're going to get the money for all this? It always goes back to the people. This is the way the system works. And I'm talking about the central bank system. And once you get rid of the central bank system and look at the system that Trump is building, there's a finite amount of currency, which means the deep state players, the Ds, just can't say, listen, we want more and more and more. Everything's accounted for. This is how much we're bringing in. This is what we can spend. And that's all that can be done. So I do believe that once again, everything is about to change. And you have to remember, our founding fathers, they warned us about this. And think about what Benjamin Franklin said. A penny saved is a penny earned. Who hasn't heard those wise words? Well, that's from Benjamin Franklin. And basically, America's founding fathers certainly had their own ideas about money, debt, and banking. And they weren't always in agreement. But overall, the men who face as grace our bills today had some sage advice, if only we had listened. When it comes to sensible spending, Benjamin Franklin was the master. If you know how to spend less than you get, you have the philosopher's stone, he said. And beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship. When it came to prioritizing where we spend our money, he knew that necessities never equal our wants. Thomas Jefferson was also known for his thriftiness. He advised folks to never spend our money before you have it. And he cautioned that things shouldn't be bought simply because they're cheap. On the national scale, he envisioned a wise and frugal government which shall restrain men from injuring one another. This, he argued, would leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned. James Madison and George Washington also warned against the dangers of debt. To contract new debts is not the way to pay old ones. And that is America's first president said during his farewell address. Use public credit as sparingly as possible. On the national debt, he told Congress once that no pecuniary consideration is more urgent than the regular redemption and discharge of the public debt. On none can delay be more injurious or an economy of time more valuable. James Madison said, "A public debt is a public curse." Alexander Hamilton disagreed, but only to a point. A national debt, if it is not excessive, will be to us a national blessing. Thomas Jefferson said, "I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies." He warned that if banks held the power to control currency, they could use inflation and deflation to deprive people of their property. John Adams took issue with what he called the banking infatuation. He asserted that only banks of deposit were honest, and those issuing paper money at interest were no better than robbers. George Washington, despite presiding over the creation of the First National Bank, argued it could ruin commerce, oppress the honest, and open the door to every species of fraud and injustice. And these founding fathers warned us from the very, very beginning. And you can see here we are today. It kicked it off in 1913. By the way, that was the third private West central bank in this country. The first one, Congress didn't renew the charter. The second one, Andrew Jackson got rid of. And I do believe the third one, Trump is going to remove. And we've had this private West central bank system here in this country since 1913. Yes, we have gone through many different types of currency. We had a gold-backed currency. We became the reserve currency. Then we came off the gold standard. We went full fiat. That was the Federal Reserve note. And here we are today. And I do believe that moving forward, we're going to be shifting into another currency. Because once we get rid of the Federal Reserve note, which is a private corporation currency, we're going to be moving into a people's currency where there's no corporation controlling the currency. So I do believe we will be shifting into a new currency. It might not look that different, but yes, the words on the bills, if they're still bills, which I do believe they will be, it's going to change. No longer will it say Federal Reserve note on top. It'll probably just say the United States of America, and that is it. And I do believe that will be probably backed by gold and probably stable coins. And I do believe in the future we'll be using a lot of the currency on the blockchain. And we could see that Trump and the Patriots, they're all setting this up for that. And every step of the way, Trump is putting the key people in position to restructure the old system and basically remove parts of the old system and restructure it into the Treasury. Well, Scott Bessent and whoever else then after him is in control. They will control what is going on. And I do believe in the end, the central bank, the way we know it today, which is the Federal Reserve, it will no longer exist. I do believe that we will be going back to the Constitution, going back to sound money. And I do believe that we will be based on gold, will be based on probably stablecoins, Bitcoin, and we'll be using the blockchain to transact business. And I think this is why Trump, if you go back a little bit in time, says that banks are antiquated. Actually, his son, Eric Trump, also says that banks are antiquated. So I do believe already they're letting us know that we're moving in a completely different direction in regards to currency and the way we transact business. And in the end, we will not need the IRS. We will not need the private West central bank system, which means the buying power is going to return to the American people. And not just the American people, but the people around the world. Because once you stop the dilution of currency, you stop inflation. And I do believe that's exactly what is going to happen. And we're going to see a lot of the buying power come back. And I think people are going to recognize the buying power coming back as they are now, with no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. But once he gets rid of income tax, even if he just gets rid of the income tax for the lower end of the scale, 0 to, let's say, 50 or 70,000 people or $100,000 worth of income, people are going to feel this. And that's a huge majority of the country. And once people feel this, and once people understand that, wow, my buying power came back, inflation's being held steady, the tariffs are now funding the government, same with the gold card, same with the energy sales, fuel is coming down, the country is going to take off. Because what do you think people are going to do with their money? Yes, they'll save some of it, but they'll also say, holy crap, I have an extra 10,000, I have an extra 20,000, I have an extra 30,000 because I have to pay those taxes, which means if they just put half away, or maybe even a little bit more, they can use the other to put back into retail, food, you name it, which is going to then allow companies to build their business, and they'll get stronger and stronger. They'll hire more people. As you hire more people, they're not paying taxes. That money goes back into the economy. And this is how you build a system very, very quickly. And I do believe this is exactly what Trump is planning. And you can see we are definitely heading that way. And now we just have another piece to the puzzle where they're preparing to remove the IRS, or as Dan Scavino would say, abolishing the IRS. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.